Good morning, Trinity Lutheran Church. Glad that you are here. There are a few seats up in the front, as is usual. So if you'd like to, if you're sitting in a window well or if you're standing, if you'd like to move in, you're certainly welcome to come on in. There's about 12 or 14 seats up here in the front. Welcome, everybody, to our special congregational meeting. This is a very exciting day and a very exciting time for Trinity Lutheran Church. We're going to begin our meeting by singing together a little bit. You can remain seated. Some of you've got coffee in your hand, so we'll sit and sing, Holy, Holy, Holy. The Lord be with you. Oh, let us pray. Lord God, you have refocused our vision. You are renewing our ministries, and you will refresh our facility. At this moment, we ask that you would also renew, refocus, and refresh us as we gather to discern your will and celebrate your call for us to be a light in downtown Moorhead and beyond. Amen. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, it's great to have everybody here today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Lyseth. I am the current council president, and it's my privilege to kind of walk through the process that we've this journey that we've been taking over the last several years and getting to this step and this critical moment in our congregation. And so it's very exciting to be here today. So, called to be a light. We've been talking about this for months and really trying to define it and help us do it. And so it really comes down to we're refocusing our vision. What is Trinity going to be in the future? Renewing our ministries. What are the ministries that we are going to continue to do at this church? And what are the ministries that we need to continue to create to make sure that we are meeting the needs of today's parishioners and tomorrow's? And that's a really exciting piece. And then refreshing our facilities. We know that there are issues within the building that we have today, and how do we take a building and make that support the first two parts of our mission? How do we make sure that our vision and our ministries are supported by a building? Because as Pastor Matt said a week ago, it's not the building, it's the people inside the building. It's all of you sitting in this room right now, but we need a launching place. We need a place to get together, to energize ourselves, and then go out and share that good news in the world. So we come today, and we start talking about, we've talked about capital campaign. And our capital campaign proposal for you today is a goal of raising $10 million in pledges. And that's $9 million for a building improvement fund, and $1 million for an endowment to sit in the Trinity Foundation. That income and earnings off of that in perpetuity will be given back to Trinity to maintain the facility. It's a piece we weren't quite as good at in the past, and so we want to make sure that we're thinking about that rooms get painted, carpet gets replaced, without having to do more capital campaigns along the way. So we feel that that is a good start. So how did we get to this point? And for those of you that have been part of the process, and I think most of you have, we started with a CAT scan, and that was almost 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we started this process, and that was the Congregational Assessment Tool, and we just started talking about, so what is Trinity like today, and what are our aspirations and visions for the future? It was really just kind of a checkpoint for the congregation of where we want to be in the future. So from that CAT scan, we took that great information and broke it down into our 2020 visioning teams. And those 2020 visioning team really started talking about that information that we had. So what do we need to do as Trinity going forward? We know that the community keeps changing around us. We know that the way people attend church continues to change. And we need to make sure that as members of Trinity, we are setting our congregation up for the future. And it was really a great, robust conversation with that group, meeting for probably about a year. And from that 2020 visioning team, we broke out into dream teams. We realized that there were really 4 categories that we needed to look at. We were talking about the administration of the church. We talked about our facility. We talked about hospitality. And we talked about the technology to support the mission inside the church. And those 4 pieces, we really just started dreaming. And Dream is a great example of it, because this was what is the greatest thing we could possibly do if we never thought about money? And so we came up with a lot of great stuff. Because if you don't have to think about money to start with, you come up with some really great ideas and some things that you would have never thought about had we constrained ourselves with that conversation first. And out of the Dream Team, we started a building committee. And we put that together to really say, okay, what are the possibilities with this facility? We know that we have a great worship space in the sanctuary. We have another great worship space here in the CLC, but we knew that we had some difficulties within some of the other spaces around the church that were causing us some trouble. And so the building committee started working through some plans to see what is possible with this church. And during that process, we engaged Zerberg, the architects. And if you remember, about 18 months ago, we had a presentation, and that was, we had this grand scheme. Again, we weren't thinking about money yet. It's always easier to not think about money. And so you probably saw that $15 million plan. It had saved the sanctuary, it saved the CLC, and then we just redid everything else. And it was a great, grand plan. I mean, it was beautiful, except it cost $15 million. So we heard that part and said, oh gosh, all right, so we don't have $15 million. I checked my pockets, and I looked through a couple of other members, and I didn't see it. So we started to have some other conversations about what does work for this congregation? Because we knew nothing was not the answer. We had to go someplace, and we had to take a direction. And that's what brought us into a number that you've seen today, the $10 million, 9 for a building and 1 for a building endowment. And from that, we started with a capital campaign development team to really start that conversation with members. So what do you think about 9? Where do you think we are at 9? Can we get to 9? And we got a lot of nods along the way in this development team to really see who's on board. And so we felt really good about that. And the interesting part, if you were at the meeting for $15 million or now a $9 million piece, the 5 driving pieces that we have had throughout this mission from the 2020 visioning team years ago till today, we still have 5 constraints of ministry with this building that we have today. We have a lot of deferred maintenance. The facility security is not up to date. We have a preschool in our building, and it is not the safest place that it should be. We have multiple entrances that are not secure. We need to be thinking about that today and in the future. We need to improve the existing space utilization. I don't know about you, but I was watching everybody come down. So the great thing is we had hundreds of people in the sanctuary today. How long did it take to get you people here today? Did anybody? That's space utilization. It's not a real easy flow to get around the building. The good news is when 100 people are coming to coffee, all you got to do is follow the person in front of you and you'll probably get here. But that's a big piece about our space utilization. We have rooms in this church that aren't used enough. And we have rooms in this church that are used way too much. And we need to figure out how to balance that out and use the whole church all the time. And we need to improve that entry, circulation, and wayfinding. We have a problem with the church of which is our main entrance. Is it 7th Street or is it 8th Street? Many members that have been here a long time like me will say it's 7th Street because that's where the mail comes in, but if you ask anybody who's joining the church, it's 8th Street. And whichever door you choose, it's not easy to get to the other side of the church. And so we still have that issue. And the last one, developing a central gathering space. This is a piece that's really important. We have 2 separate and unique worshiping communities, and they are both awesome, but we don't have the place to come together as one congregation. I get excited about every time we do a single service like we did today, because that is bringing the whole community together in one space, worshiping our Lord together. And that is really exciting, but we can do that on a daily and weekly basis by changing that gathering space. So as we look about this property, if you've seen this map before, so if you were Google, you would be up in the sky looking down on our property. And so this is 8th Street is across the bottom, and this is our parking lot. You can see the red boxes are the property that Trinity owns in our near vicinity. We have our entire block, the insurance building, the parcel across the street, a third behind Gate City Bank, which we use for storage and parking, and then we have our 2 parking lots on the north side and what would be the northwest corner of Trinity. So these are the spaces that we are working with today. And as we look at the red boxes there, we have 2 of the pieces. On the right is our sanctuary, built in 1951, as most of you just experienced just a few minutes ago. And then the spot in the middle, this weird L section, which is our 1949 parish education building. And so this is the oldest piece of building on our property, built in 1949, 1 year before the church burned down, and we built the 51 church. And I say we as Trinity, I was not here. It was a past generation investing in me. I'm stealing that from Andrew because he's absolutely right. We've had a lot of that across this congregation. And so that's the spot that we're really struggling with because of the age of the building and the non-flexible spaces that are within it. It is a great, wonderful concrete building if you like rooms that are 85 square feet and try to squeeze in 20 kids in a Sunday school room. It's just not working today. So let's talk about what this project will do for us. We're going to create a unified gathering space for Trinity and community events to improve wayfinding. By removing the 1949 part and reconstructing, we're able to have that unifying space in the middle of our building. We need to improve accessibility. This is not a good church to get around if you are on crutches or using a wheelchair. If you've ever had to do that, it is probably the most frustrating place you can be. Being on the building committee, we've discovered there are like 15 different levels at this church. Some of them are completely inaccessible to anybody using a wheelchair. That's just not okay in 2019. We need to improve and maximize spaces for our children, youth, and music ministries. The world of children's education is changing. It's different than it was in 1950 when these first buildings were constructed. It's different than in the 1970s. It's different than the 90s, and it's going to be different 20 years from now. We're looking at creating spaces that are available for children that are flexible, that as the teaching modes change, we can adapt to whatever is happening right now. And so that's a big piece for us. And we need to create flexible spaces for Trinity to use by community organizations during the week. We have over 19 nonprofit groups that use our church today. 19 groups that we are opening our doors to that they are using for support and encouragement of each other. We could double and triple that by changing the way the space is used here at the church. We could be that light into the community because of the space. We need to refresh our worship spaces, including improvements to our lighting and sound systems. Even though we updated a sound system 20 years ago, it is not up to date anymore. I think most of us update their TVs about every 20 years, right? At least every 20 years, maybe every 5. We need to be doing the same thing within Trinity. When equipment is starting to get outdated, we need to replace it. And a lot of times we wait for it to die and then we replace. So we need to be thinking about how do we keep that on track. We need to expand the handicapped parking. I think there's about 4 or 5 spaces out here. We need to get it to multiple doors, and that has to be addressed as well. And we need to improve the energy efficiency. Part of the issue that we have with an older building, especially the 1949 part, is the windows are not as efficient as they should be. Heating plant could always be more efficient. Everything about the church can be upgraded to make it a much more efficient building for heating and cooling. And again, our project will expand our preschool to include infant care. Infant care is a big deal today. For most of you that see that maternity leave and paternity leave continues to expand within businesses in our community and around the country, the reality is maternity leave usually lasts for about 3 months. Most places won't take an infant until 6 months or 9 months. So mom and dad are stressed with how do you fill those last 3 to 6 months to get their child into preschool. Having infant care fills that gap for our community. We need to improve the street presence and signage. No doubt about that. When we drive by 8th Street, it is not a great welcoming place. This window is awesome at night, but the rest of the building is dark, and we have that wonderful insurance building blocking the whole thing. So there are things to improve. We want to include a coffee bar and an art gallery. When we talk about a central gathering space, we need to have, has anybody drank coffee today? No, but so we probably don't need coffee, but we'll at least do the art gallery because Trinity has such wonderful art around this building right now. Some of it is hidden in basements and around corners. We want to be proud of it and show it off and continue to have a space for our community, just like they do on the upstairs hallway going through, that we want to share and show off all the great people in our community. And we want to address our deferred maintenance issues by providing a new and refreshed facility. We have things that need to be done. Some of it is end of life, and it's just easier and better to replace. And the last part, we want to create that building endowment. And the income is going to be used for continuing maintenance. There's always going to be stress on our budget, whether it's 20 years ago, today, or 20 years from now. We don't always like to give money to replace carpet. We don't always like to give a little extra money for paint. We love it when we do programs. We love it when we go out. Let's set the next generation up for success by allowing money to come in to take care of the needs of the community, our region, and the world, instead of worrying about that next coat of paint. Some of the main components, this 1949 parish building, that big L that's right off on to my right, is going to be demolished. There just is no way around it. The levels are different. We have a half a level up, another ramp down. We have to be able to work through that. So it would include a new main front entry and facade on 8th Street. We have to have that new welcoming entrance where everybody knows that they're coming in. A large open gathering space and circulation space. We're referring to it as the Trinity Commons. It is going to be that center place for our congregation and our community. A welcoming center, along with that coffee bar and art gallery. We need a welcoming center, we need a front door, we need a main entrance for people to come in. Right now we have 2 separate entrances with a welcoming center on one door and not on the other. We need to figure out how do we welcome people down the main entrance. Church offices will be included in this space. They will be accessible and centralized restrooms. Again, we do not have one restroom in this entire church building that is handicap accessible. Not one, and there's over 28. And we will have infant care in this space. As we move on to the 1960 addition, which is right behind us if we look through the windows, it was built in the 60s and then expanded in the late 80s. The good news about this building, it's a very solid building, and it has a structural post 20 foot on center right down the middle. The entire space is able to be gutted and refurbished. We can take all the walls out and rebuild them to meet the needs of the church today. This will give us flexible children's spaces and preschool spaces. The youth ministry spaces will be flexible and be able to convert into meeting spaces. The wonderful thing about our youth ministry up on the second floor right now is we have this giant room that's really awesome. The bad news is it's too small. It's just too small for what we need today. And today's youth, we start in really big rooms, and then we break out into corners into our small groups. We're always together, but we're separate in the same spot. It's really the way to be flexible. Our fellowship hall, which is underneath the sanctuary, will be refurbished as well into 3 large flexible spaces. It'll have meeting rooms, music rooms, and new restrooms down there. And it will have direct access from the new central gathering space. And the building project, I'm pausing for crying and for people to get over this. That yellow insurance building will be demolished and parking will be expanded. That's been a long goal, I think, of Trinity for many, many years, as that building has just kind of been the bane of our existence, trying to get a real parking lot in our space. So here's some of the pictures, and they've been out in the hallway. We've had them for a month, and so hopefully you've been on some tours and to get an idea of what we're proposing here. And the light space in the middle is really the 1949 part of the building that we're recommending be removed and built into a new space. You can see on the sanctuary side, we have a new fellowship and gathering space. That's our Trinity Commons. And on the left-hand side is a 2-story addition for administration, reception, and hospitality. So we do have to replace some of the rooms that are in the 1949 space, but they're going to be more flexible and focus on the needs of the church today and the future. So here's a good look at what is being proposed. And again, these are concepts. Nothing gets put into place because we're not going to spend any money on the architects yet, because that costs money. And so I got a shout out to Jim Cole. He's probably in the audience. He's been a great church member and been doing a lot of this stuff for us pro bono. So we can't thank Jim enough to getting to this spot. But you can see, thank you. Thank you so much, Jim. So as you can see, 1949 part of the building is removed, and we have a new main entrance down on the 8th Street side that really gives us into this, this new area that we can walk into that we're calling Trinity Commons. And the cool part about this is it's a 2-story volume space. And so you're not walking into our dark hallways like we have today in all our spaces. This is wide open space, and you can see it's wide open all the way back to the sanctuary level. So there's going to be windows and natural light flowing in from this space, from the 7th Street side, from the 8th Street side, and also above the Trinity Sanctuary stained glass windows. So where our courtyard is today, that will be covered with a new roof, and light will be flowing into that. So as we walk into the space, you have a welcoming center that starts right away. So new members, anybody visiting for a baptism or a wedding, we have one place to come in, and it's very easy to get to. So as you can see, the sanctuary level, if you're going to the sanctuary, you keep going, you're going to be drawn to it, and you have an entrance into the CLC, which will be a high volume space as well, that takes you right to the back of the CLC where everybody comes in. And so now our wayfinding is very much controlled, and we can help people get to a space without having to walk them to there, which what I've been doing. And so inside this gathering space, this is our Trinity Commons. This is that gathering space for all of our members. This is where we'll have coffee. And they're not drawn on here, but this is where it's kind of a coffee house type of atmosphere where you have different kinds of tables. You'll have round tables like we have in the back of the church, but we'll have high top places. We'll have couches around because we want to be a very welcoming and friendly place that people can just sit down, relax, and soak it in. And so it will give us a great space. You can see there's stairways next to the sanctuary. We go down into the fellowship hall, that's our connection space, and then we go up, and these are both half levels, up to that sanctuary level where that connects us into the youth ministry and preschool side. And you can see that wing, it's not totally drawn out, but the one thing I would draw you to is there is a door protecting that whole wing. So now our preschoolers, our Sunday school people, when we're having a funeral or some community event, those doors can be closed and those kids are protected the entire time. It really helps us with our security of our building. The next floor is our second floor, which is the youth room, and you can see on the top, again, we can expand the space by taking out the walls and really giving ourselves the flexible spaces that our youth education needs today. It becomes much more, we have the ability to serve multiple groups and be able to break rooms out into really large to handle hundreds of kids and break it down to serve as many as 50. So it gives us a nice, wonderful connection. Here's kind of the fun part that we've discovered. Trinity has a few levels that we've gone around, and so we just seem to love ramps and those kind of things. But one of the things we discovered, so the second floor, so the youth room on the second floor, and it just stops there. If we connect that floor and run it all the way across to the choir loft, it's only off by about 2 inches. So we're actually going to build a bridge there, and we're going to make the choir loft handicap accessible with an elevator. So every once in a while we get really lucky that the space kind of works out for the next piece. So it allows us to be able to take care of people using that choir loft, and frankly, whoever moves that piano up and down, this will be a much better piece to not have to. Can you imagine going around that corner with a piano? I just can't do it. And so here's the basement. Oh, so this is our existing space, and we have, this is where our 2 choir rooms are and our current fellowship hall that we're using. And the great thing about Trinity is we have some really good space. The bad thing is some of the spaces are not, can't be used for other spaces. We have 2 great choir rooms, and they're great spaces, but that's all they can be used for, and we use them twice a week, actually once a week, both rooms for choir practice. We'll get these rehabbed to be able to use for multiple spaces, flatten them out, and be able to use them for other things. I'll direct your attention to the sanctuary side where you can see the fellowship hall. This is, again, light coming down from the stairway, being able to see into the fellowship hall. 3 really big rooms. The great thing about this, every one of those rooms has windows. There's natural light flowing into all of these. It's just a wonderful piece that we can still use our basement or our lower level and allow light and just to be flowing into these rooms and make it feel like a really good space. You can see there's a great big space in the middle, mechanical and basement storage area. We do not have good storage in this church at all, and so we will fix that by just having a basement with elevator access, so it can actually be rolled in and we don't have to hurt ourselves moving things in and out. So it gives us a really good feel across the church. And so this is looking northwesterly, and so these are, again, these are concepts of looking at what it could be. And so you can see that's the 2-story volume that connects between Trinity the sanctuary and the CLC that we're in today. You can see there's a new defined main entrance that will draw people into it. The interesting part is when you look at the light that will be emitting from all this glass, whether it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night when this church is being used, the light will draw you in. And the other part, the light will emanate out into our community. And then here is the 7th Street side, and you can see the 60s additions and the sanctuary remain mostly the same. And it's really just a rework on the 7th Street entrance. The stairs need to be replaced, the doors need to be replaced. You will still be able to come in, but we're going to add a lot more light because we want to be able to connect those windows and that light from one side to the other. And then the question that is always on everybody's mind, are these the final plans? No. Nothing's a final plan until we actually spend money to get the renderings, because a wall may not be where we think it can be because of support. The room may need to be slightly over. We don't have the square footage. This is a concept about what we can do with this project. And then when will these specific plans be drawn? Once the capital campaign pledges have been received, the church council will develop the next steps. So what we're talking about today is really about, as Trinity Lutheran Church, are we willing to try and raise some money? It's not about, I want that room moved 6 feet over, or what color of carpet are you going to place in that room. This is about our future. Andrew spoke to it very eloquently about, this is our time. This is our time to put our flag in the ground, to recognize what has been done in the past. I always think about, as I've been through this project for 4+ years, I keep thinking about 1950. This congregation built this brand new education center, 1949, and I am sure that they were up to their eyeballs in debt when they built it. And a year later, their sanctuary burns down to the ground. And the stories are, the very next day, the leaders of the church said, we're going to rebuild. Not in a week, we didn't have a meeting, they just said, we're going to rebuild. And they rebuilt. They didn't rebuild the same church, they built it twice as large because they knew something good was coming. And I just think we are in the exact same spot today, where we have the opportunity to set up this congregation for members that are not yet born and have not yet heard the good news of Jesus. And I am so excited about moving on to that next step. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that somebody may have.
When you were talking about the choir rooms downstairs and redoing that whole thing, is there going to be something done for maintenance, a place where we could store our stuff? Because we really have a heck of a hard time storing all our materials that we use.
Yep, that's in the basement in that mechanical and storage area. It'll be a huge space with elevator access to store everything the church would need.
And do we get a giant maintenance office too for us, just wondering,
Yeah, there will, again, when the plans get drawn, we'll get those things. Mm-hmm.
Any sort of plans to repair water damage to ceilings in the sanctuary?
Yes, that's all part of this refresh the facilities.
I figured. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I've been staring at them for years. It drives me crazy. She asked about the pathways is using our insurance building right now and asking what would we do with them. The easy answer is we'll just invite them inside the new building.
Yeah, is there going to be just like the same, just one elevator, or so?
Yes, the new plan has one new elevator that will hit every floor, from second floor all the way down to Fellowship Hall, down to a new basement subfloor. Yeah, and the elevator off of 7th remains. Funerals. All right. At this time, I'd like to invite up Ted Heron, who is the chair of our Capital Campaign Committee.
Holy, 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 merciful and mighty. There is goodness in the light. And I wrote down what I wanted to say today, but it doesn't make sense anymore. And I think partly because of our experience today. I am grateful for you all. I'm grateful for the fact that you are joining us today, that we worship together in our beautiful space upstairs. We sang incredible hymns, we listened to beautiful music, we heard words that moved us. I'm grateful for all of you for stepping up and being here today. I feel like I've been knee-deep in speaking about Trinity's challenges for the better part of a decade. And if you don't mind, I'm going to get personal for just a moment. I served on the call committee, the senior pastor call committee, with some incredible people that are here today. Oof. I'm a bit emotional, which I'm also struggling with because I don't often get emotional. But I remember, after serving for a year doing some extraordinary work, that we as a congregation voted from our hearts, feeling the nudge of the Holy Spirit. We voted to not call Pastor Holton, who is retired and enjoying a great life right now. And I bring this up only to tell you that after we heard this vote, I happened to be down here, and I was singing in the worship ensemble, and I was dumbfounded. I was really shocked and at a loss. Like, what are we going to do? And we sang the song, "Your Grace is Enough." Great is your faithfulness, O God. You wrestle with the sinner's heart. You lead us by still waters and to mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, O God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. There are many people in this room that have worked very hard to figure out what Trinity looks like next. And it doesn't look like it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It won't look like it does today. It will change. It will be different. What we're proposing and what we're asking you to do is to faithfully get behind a campaign. As Matt said, firmly plants our stake in the ground that we're not going anywhere because we have work to do. Our space is a vessel of good in this community. It's one component of it all. But what's most important is the work that we do, and the Spirit that lives here guides us, walks with us, teaches us, and holds us. I am grateful for this opportunity, and I know it won't be easy. You saw $10 million on the screen. That will not be easy, and I will unabashedly ask you for money. I will unabashedly ask you to give what you can, because the only way we're going to do this is to stretch. And for me, for our family, this is our legacy moment. This is our opportunity. It's happening a little younger for us, but it is our opportunity. And I ask you all to participate, to be involved, and to be a light for Trinity, for Moorhead, and for all. Carmen?
I am honored to make this motion as Trinity's treasurer. The Trinity Lutheran Church Council moves to initiate a capital campaign with the goal of raising $10 million in pledges to support a building improvement project and a building endowment fund.
Thank you, Carmen. There is a motion from the Church Council. Is there a second? Second. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Yeah. That's good. Here, go ahead.
I had been a member of Trinity Lutheran Church in the 50s when I was just a little girl. And we moved from Fargo to Moorhead, and we were attending a Pentecost church at the time, and then moved from Fargo to Moorhead. And I remember always this church kind of like a catacombs, because there were so many different rooms and places to be in and explore and everything. But I really did like Trinity Lutheran Church, and I know it's difficult to put together a building project where we're going to change all these different areas and stuff, but we will all do that for the greater good for the church and for the community of Moorhead. So I'm looking forward to being a light for all you congregation members, and we're all working together to do this. But again, this had been a church that I attended as a little girl. I moved to Colorado in '78, gone 31 years, and came back about 9 years ago.
Thank you.
I know that many of you have been working very hard, and thank you for that. In these preliminary discussions that were held with many of us, there was some talk about trying to secure sort of a seed fund or a certain amount of money before we launch this campaign. Is there any update on where we would be now, where we're starting from?
Yes, we have been working very hard to and that's kind of the feasibility side of figuring out where we are and where we can be. I'm happy to report today with a small group of people, we've already secured 25% of the funds needed for the construction. And we're, thank you very much. And we are a couple pledges away from securing a match that will put us to 40% of the construction project today.
Matt, I'm really inspired by what you and Ted have said, and I really think what Ted said about this being a legacy moment for many of us is a really true statement. I have kind of a technical question because I've never been through this before, and I hope this is relevant, but how does it work when a family makes a pledge for something like this? Is there a timeline we can anticipate? Just thinking about stretching, can you help us with how that looks?
Absolutely. I thought you were going to ask if trombones were going to be allowed in the sanctuary. Yes, they are. Trinity Brass is still welcome. Pledges, first of all, we will take all kinds of money, so we're not limited to that. And you want to write one check, you want to write us lots of checks, that's good too. But what we talk about is a 3-year pledge, and some gifts will be a little bit more significant, and they would ask for a 5-year pledge. I would encourage anybody, gifts small or large, to be thinking about this as a multi-year commitment to the church. And so a 3 or a 5-year pledge, no matter what the amount, is your commitment to Trinity in the future. So we will accept everything.
What's a feasible timeline for completion?
So assuming a yes vote here to start raising funds, we'll have our pledge drive at the end of October at a service. And so that will give us an idea of where we're at. From the total number of dollars. And so the easy answer is when we raise the 10 million, when we get the pledges for the 10 million, that can get us to start with the architects immediately. They've done some of the pre-work, but it usually takes about 4 to 6 months for them to bring the kind of plans that we have to buildable drawings that the congregation can see and move forward with.
Like 2 years, 3 years?
For the construction side of this, probably 18 months to 2 years. The idea would be the admin wing where the pastor's offices are needs to be gutted and then rebuilt into the early education and preschool, so then we can actually remove the center part of the building. So it's phased, but it's all connected because of mechanical and electricity and everything that goes along with that.
I would call the question for vote.
Question has been called. And second. So all those in favor of the Trinity Lutheran Church to initiate I'm going to get this right, a capital campaign with the goal of raising $10 million in pledges to support the building improvement project and a building endowment fund. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Motion passed. This is a great day for Trinity. Thank you very much, everyone. So now, Pastor Simon.
I'm feeling verklempt here, people. I got to tell you, we have some incredible resources in this congregation with our current leadership, at least. Well, much of our leadership is wonderful and everything, but boy, we've got some really committed people who have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy over these, especially these last few months. And let's just hear a round of applause for them, please. I do want to caution you as I listen and thinking about pledges and details and that kind of thing. Please remember, your pledges are above and beyond your giving to Trinity. There is little purpose in taking this fund and paying it over here because we will still need to function as a mission and ministry. So I just caution you. This is why they call it a stretch, people. It's something we're going to all have to take a look at and make commitments. And again, just this is a wonderful day, and let's pray God's blessing upon it here. This is a marvelous prayer, one that we should take with us throughout this journey, but share with me as we pray. O God, you have called your servants to ventures of which we cannot see the end, by paths as yet untrodden, through perils unknown. Give us faith to go out with good courage, not knowing where we go, but only that your hand is leading us and your love supporting us. Through your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Would you stand as we're going to join in singing a sending song, This Little Light of Mine. Go in peace, be a light. Thanks be to God.